What if I told you that 2025 was the year that AI stopped being a tool you use and became a colleague that works with you? I am Mac Goswami.
And I'm Sam Dave. Welcome to season 3 of Inside Assemble AI, where we decode the AI revolution one insight at a time.
So, Sam, since we have already passed 2025, and honestly, when I look back at where we started this year versus where we are now with agentic AI, it feels like we have lived through a decade of innovation in just 12 months with so many episodes, with so many guests, with so many topics.
You're absolutely right, Mac. And here's what wild. At the start of 2025, we're all talking about ChatGPT and Claude as these amazing question answering AI machines. But now we are deploying AI agents that are booking meetings, writing code, analyzing market trends, and making decisions autonomously. That's not incremental progress. That's a paradigm shift. So that's exactly what we are diving into today. The rise of agentic AI in 2025. What changed? Why it happened so fast? And what it means for all of us.
And Sam, I have been thinking about this a lot because when I talk to business leaders and developers, testers, business analysts, they see the cool agent demos, but they're confused about what actually made this possible. From your perspective, building agents and working with enterprise analytics clients, what were the fundamental breakthroughs that enabled this explosion? What do you think?
I think that's the right question to start with, Mac. For our listeners, as we are trying to dive into these AI agents, but first thing we need to remember is that people see the shiny agents but miss the foundation. 2020 was unique because we had multiple breakthrough factors converging at once, and they all compounded on each other. But let me break down what I see as the 5 key factors for this agentic AI revolution. Context windows exploded. We went from celebrating K tokens at the start of the year to models handling 1 million, then 2 million tokens with Gemini. And that's the difference between an agent that can read a document, an agent that can read your entire code base, all your, reside in your company's infrastructure. The second thing is that the reasoning models mature dramatically. Like, you can take this OpenAI's O1 and O3 and Google's Gemini 2.0, even the new Flash models could finally think through multi-state problems. That's fascinating. Like they can plan ahead, they can detect their own mistakes. So we moved from models that could respond to models and that could actually think. And that's groundbreaking.
Right.
Third point is that tool use becomes standardized and reliable. Like we went from hacky function calling to robust APIs where models could reliably interact with databases. And the fourth, and I guess I would say that's one of the most important factor is that the multi-agent frameworks matured from like academic experiments to production-ready systems. Like there's this, companies like Crew AI, like Microsoft AutoGen or even LangGraph, these frameworks made it possible that where we are right now with the AI agents. And the final point is that the inference cost dropped down dramatically. Like, of course, you have to think about the ROI and the cost factor. And I could feel like that where we started, now things are getting 10x cheaper, but you can use it for 100x more time. So we could finally run an agent 24/7 without burning through our budgets. And that's a huge plus point for any enterprise infrastructure.
Yeah, and I think every industry can benefit out of it. Like every percent, every enterprise level, everyone, and even solopreneur. Now, so longer the memory, better reasoning, reliable tools, robust frameworks, economics that actually work. 5 breakthroughs compounding on each year that explains that explosive feeling of 2025. What's interesting to me, Sam, that the tool use point, you already mentioned that. I remember early 2024, function calling was such a mess. We would spend more time debugging why the agent didn't call the function correctly than actually building the features. Now, by late 2025, it became something that you could genuinely depend in the production environment. And that's actually a huge achievement.
Yeah, I mean, you're right on that, Mac. That's exactly what happened. I know there's some, I guess, some confusion around. There's some controversies. People are still not pretty much dependent on Model Context Protocol or MCP, which is also kind of like combination of a lot of agents in the same ecosystem. But we still made a huge progress in 2025. But here is what I'm very much curious about from my perspective is that I mean, we've been in these trenches building AI products and talking to enterprise teams for years. But when did it click for you that this wasn't just a hype anymore? I mean, I would love to know about your perspective about what were the moments in 2025 that made you realize agentic AI was actually production ready? Like, what are some of the examples that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very relevant questions for our listeners. So for me, there was a few touch points. OpenAI's operator announcement in January was huge, and that was a major lab saying that we are not building chatbots anymore. We are building autonomous task completion systems. Then seeing Claude's computer use capabilities evolve throughout the year, and Google's Gemini 2.0 launch in December with full multi-model agentic capabilities. But honestly, what made it real was not the announcements, it was seeing actual production deployment succeed. And that made me interesting to think about that. I was talking to a fintech team that built agents to monitor transactions, flag anomalies, and generate compliance reports. These were not simple rule based systems, they were making contextual judgments. So, adapting to new patterns, communicating findings in natural language. And that's when I realized that we crossed a threshold. And I think that's purely game changing thing for me.
Yeah, no, that fintech example that you just shared is very fascinating because it's in a heavily regulated space where mistakes are
Right.
costly, right? Which actually leads me to something I have been thinking about a lot lately that agents making all these autonomous decisions, right? Like, I'm a part of a pharmaceutical marketing industry, and I know that in that analytics space, if I have built agents that monitor campaigns and recommended optimization, but they're also making judgment calls that influence $1 million budgets. So, Mac, how do you think about the balance between agent autonomy and human oversight? And when should we trust agents to make decisions versus keeping humans in the loop? I know these are like $1 million question and something that can keep all of us, awake in the night. But I just wanted to get your perspectives on that.
Yeah, it's actually a very important question, I would say. And honestly, the 25 taught us this lesson through some painful failures. We saw agents hallucinating in high stake scenarios, making up plausible sounding data that was completely wrong, right? Customer service agents going off the scripts and making commitments companies couldn't honor. Coding agents generating subtly broken code that passed initial review but caused production issues later. Now, my view is that the level of autonomy should be calibrated to the stakes involved. For low risk tasks like generating first drafts or doing research, give agents a lot of autonomy. But for high stakes decisions in finance, healthcare, legal, you need multiple approval layers, extensive logging, human verification at key decision points. So the agent surfaces insights and recommendations, but humans make the final call. So my perspective is that I still don't think that we are not there yet, that we should give or we can fully rely on autonomous agent. I think we still at a point that where human intervention needed, especially for the enterprise level.
Yep. For our listeners, keep humans in the loop. Those are the magic words here.
Absolutely.
And I completely agree with that calibration approach that you mentioned, Mac.
Right.
What's interesting is that even in those high stake domains, Agents are incredibly valuable for augmentation. Just for an example, a medical agent can surface relevant research and flag potential issues, but the physician still needs to make the final call. A legal agent can draft contracts and identify precedents, but the attorney needs to review that and provide the final sign off. So the human becomes 10x more productive, but still stays in the loop. So now, Mac, just piggyback on that. Let me ask you about something that's been on my mind lately. The frameworks like Creo AI, AutoGen, LangGraph, this evolved significantly in 2025. But from what you've been seen working with development teams and building team systems, how did these frameworks actually mature? And what made them production ready rather than just, interesting experiments that won't go out in production, always stay on the QA or UAT?
Great question, Sam. And I think it is also going to help the developer industry as well. So all the frameworks are really what separated hobbyist demos from production system this year. So
Mhm.
at the start of 2025, these frameworks were promising but rough. Crew AI had an intuitive API but limited capability. Autogen was powerful but had a steep learning curve. LangGraph had this interesting graph-based approach, but documentation was sparse. By year end, all three had matured significantly in three key ways. First, they standardized reusable patterns. The agent manager hierarchy, where one agent supervises others, sequential workflows for linear tasks, hierarchical delegation for complex projects. Developer didn't have to reinvent these patterns every time. Second, they built robust error handling. When agents fail, they do fail. The framework can catch that, retry with a different approach, or escalate to a human. That graceful degradation is critical for production. Now, having said that, I would also say that it's our responsibility that how eventually we are building the agents. So we need to define our workflow in that way that if that one agent fails, that it should be able to catch another one. So that's where we can maintain the flow accordingly. So for the end users, it is not going to create any issue further. For the last one, observability, you can actually see that what your agents are doing, why they made certain decisions, where they got stuck. That visibility is essential for debugging and building trust in the system. That's what I think.
I think I totally agree with you because that observability point kind of resonates with me also, Mac, because so many times, I can't tell you like how many times I've been thinking about this, that when I build an agent, that I'm going to debug that agent thinking. I'm going to make sure that the agent is not hallucinating or what is they're actually doing, I don't want to kind of create a black box that's just not going to provide some output without certain evaluation criteria. Because having transparency into the decision making process is critical for both debugging and
Right.
compliance stuff as well. But here is what really fascinating to me. We are seeing this more in a sophisticated patterns emerge, like meta agents or supervisor agents that manage other agents. We have seen some frameworks coming out, like there's one framework from company called Comet. So they're actually evaluating your underlying LLM model, making sure that that model is not hallucinating a lot when the agent spitting out some output. So, Matt, from your perspective, working with engineering teams, how should developers think about when to use a single agent versus multi-agent systems, and what's the decision framework there? And the reason I'm asking because that might alleviate this scenario. A single agent would be easier to evaluate than a multi-agent system. So, let me know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Sam. I think that way. When you creating multi-agent systems or single agents, it also depends on the requirement. For a personal level, I would recommend to do single agents because if it's a very simple task, and I just need a very simple workflow. I would highly recommend, unless I do not need multiple agents, if I can wrap up my entire workflow through a single agent. For example, I am just creating just a normal task about how many steps that I walk down for a particular day, right? So I can easily do that. I can simply read the data from my Apple Watch, and I can take the data to an agent. So for me, only a single agent, I mean, it's perfectly fine. Now, if I do that particular data, then I will send it to email, and then I will have to upload that part to another portal, medical portal. Then we definitely need multiple agents. So it comes to a point that that when we do the requirement, that we need multiple requirements, and we need to feed the data accordingly, and we need to channelize the data accordingly. That depends on how many agents. It's a multi agents or it's a single agents. But when you have the complex workflows, like that require different types of expertise, that are probably a multi-agent you know system work.
True.
So
It has to talk to a lot of different services and systems within the same,
absolutely. And especially for a software development project,
Yep.
you need a requirement analysis, like architecture design, implementation, testing. Each of these benefits from specialized knowledge and approach, right? And a supervisor agent can coordinate with this specialist and ensure the project hands off handle the dependencies. So the pattern I'm seeing successful teams adopt it start with a single agent, identify where it struggles or gets overwhelmed, then decompose that into specified agents, right? I mean, don't go just multiple agents because it sounds cool. I mean, we have the inheritance approach in the object oriented design in the coding mode, right? That we first start with the parent object and then we go to the child. So it's kind of similar for me.
Yeah, kind of like an object-oriented methodology that's we can also utilize in the agentic framework. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is also very practical because for all our listeners, start simple and decompose when needed. I mean, that should be the approach you should take, even in the enterprise world. It's probably going to take more time for you to transition from a single agent to a multi-agent system, but you have to take that approach. Otherwise, you won't be able to take your agent through a proper evaluation process. And it also mirrors how we build software systems in general. Like Mac, you mentioned that. Like start with the monolith approach, then split into microservices when you have a clear business rationale behind it. So now let's just talk about some pitfalls happen in these agentic frameworks, in 2025, because it's not always rainbow and sunshine, right? Especially in the technology world. So, Mac, in your opinion, what are the cautionary tales we need to learn from previous year as we moved past this agentic AI revolution, and still we are going to head to a new venture in 2026?
Sam, great questions. And there were plenty of failures that we need to ask about it.
I know we can't cover everything in this call, but we can share
Absolutely.
some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are plenty of things that plenty of failures that we went through. And I think that all the industry leaders, they are also facing the same thing.
Yep.
And we need to be honest about them. And at the same times, I think that would be a matter of discussion, how we can prevent them, how we can address them. So I saw agents getting stuck in infinite loops, burning to thousands of dollars in API credits without anyone noticing until the bill came. System that worked perfectly in testing, but broke in bizarre ways in production because they encountered edge cases nobody anticipated.
Yep.
So for one of the examples, like I was using API chatbot for from OpenAI. I mean, just for normal call, but I was not aware that that it was also going to cost money. So then I just put my credit card over there, and it started charging money. And there is a there tokenization issue as well. I mean, there are some limitations out there. So the more you are going to use, so you need to define. You need to set a limit. Like this is being used, so you need to be very cautiously. You need to know that what could be your usage. Like it could be on a weekly basis, it could be on daily basis, it could be on monthly basis, right? And there were several publicized cases of customer service agents misinterpreting context and creating PR nightmares for companies, coding agents that generated plausible but subtly broken code. It would pass the code review, pass initial test, then cause production issues, right? I mean,
Yeah,
so
I mean, that happened. We've seen a lot of issues. I remember the Replit agent like wiped out a production database of one company back in 2025. And I couldn't remember the company name, but it came on news.
right,
And it was pretty like disappointing and very alarming to see the way it reacted.
absolutely. So the lesson I took away is that this technology is very powerful, but requires careful engineering, extensive testing, gradual rollout, cost monitoring, human oversight, and the humility to recognize the agents will fail in ways you didn't even anticipate that. So, in a nutshell, like when anyone started thinking, started building an agent, so he or she needs to know the tool architecture, how it is going to call the APIs, how it is going to use the token, and even the overall architecture. So at least that that should clearly be understandable, like who is building the agent. Without knowing that, you never know like how it is going to fail, and what could be the potential cost for that.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, these are really important lessons. And for our listeners, make sure that you set your budget. Just don't go to like a Vibe no coding platform and just play with the agent without having a defined requirement. Because sometimes the cost overrun point would kind of like becoming very troublesome. And I've seen teams get excited about agent
Absolutely.
capabilities and forget to do the math on what it actually costs to run the systems at scale. So, speaking of moving forward, what does 2026 look like from your vantage point, Mac? I mean, based on what you saw in 2025, what are you watching for? What you're very most excited about? Some sort of a trends or development? Share that with our listeners, and we'll see if some of those resonate with our listeners' thought process as well.
Absolutely. Great question. um, I see three major trends that I'm watching very closely. First, that I think we'll see agents become significantly more reliable and trustworthy. The failures we experienced in 2025 are driving better engineering practices. And we are seeing that emergence of testing frameworks specifically for agents, best practices for prompt engineering at scale, patterns for handling failure gracefully. The wild west phase of let's just build an agent and see what happens is ending. Professional agent engineering is beginning. That's one of the thing. The second, I would say that I would expect deeper specialization instead of general purpose agents that try to do everything. We'll see agents, these are very optimized for specific domains. Legal agents that understand case law, contractual language, medical agents, these are being trained on clinical protocol, research literature, financial agents that can analyze regulatory filings and market dynamics. So these specialized agents will have domain constraints built in and appropriate safety mechanisms. And third, and the big one for me, is that multi-agent systems will become the norm rather than the exception. And we will move beyond single agent workflows to true ecosystems where specialized agents collaborate, negotiate, coordinate. And we might even see the first successful examples of agents training other agents, not just prompting or fine tuning, but actually teaching and improving each other's capabilities through the interaction. And Sam, if you remember that one of our episodes in 2025 that I brought up one examples that um, multi agents on enterprise level, that where one agent from one organization can talk to another agent from a different organization. So that's already been started, and I think that is also going to scale up eventually. So how even organizations enterprise level, they can talk to each other with their agentic system.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you on the third point, especially like, agents training on other agents, which is very fascinating. And totally agree with you on that fact that we might see a scenario when an agent from a company talking to other agents from another company. Uh, I mean, we do file transfer. We use SFTP technology and protocol to transfer file between, between various organizations, right? And we do feel that there will be a scenario when those file transfer stuff could be handled by an agent. Who knows? Like you don't need a human to drop a file, and that file will go to other companies' FTP site. An agent will do that, and that's how two agents from two different companies will talk to each other, making sure the file transfer happens. That scenario could be a possibility in the way the agent evolution is going, and I won't be surprised it happens this year. Like the big companies kind of like teaming up to build their interoperable agents that they can talk to each other, even kind of like take some of the bulk workload from human developers. So you're definitely absolutely right here. But I just wanted to kind of like be a little bit of cautious, like being a cautiously optimistic someone who kind of like me, who worked in the risk assessment area for a long time. I would also like to take a step back to understand what are the safety implications there. And Mac, as you also work in the financial services, and I'm pretty sure you also thinking about the risk as scenario around that. So can you imagine scenarios where this kind of like agentic structure could go south in some unexpected directions? And we need to be aware of that. We need to make sure that we put proper guardrails to safeguard our agentic infrastructure, especially our company's data from that kind of like anomaly or some sort of adverse situation.
You are absolutely right to be concerned, Sam. So agent to agent learning is powerful, but is potentially risky. Why? Because if agents can train each other, you need to be very careful, and you need to have the controls on what behaviors get reinforced, what goals they are optimizing for, and how you are monitoring and auditing the learning process. I think we'll see significant work in 2026 on governance frameworks for a multi-agent system, and how do you ensure coordination without losing control? How do you even audit the behavior in complex agent ecosystems? How do you even maintain alignment with human intentions as systems become more autonomous? So the key insight that I keep coming back to is that the future is not purely autonomous agents operating independently. It's human agent collaboration with clear hands-off points, approval mechanisms for high-stake decisions, and ways for humans to guide and correct agent behavior. So the human stays in the loop but operates at a higher level of abstractions.
Yeah. No, I really like that framing, like human agent collaborations with humans operating at a high level of abstraction. I mean, that feels right because at the end of the day, that aligns with our previous statement that you have to keep humans in the loop. Because the human isn't doing the grunt work, but it's providing strategy direction and oversight with proper guardrails. So, Matt, before we wrap up, let's get practical for our listeners. Let's say we have developers, business leaders, technologies, they're all tuning in to listen to this very thought provoking discussion. Now, if they hear about agentic AI, they see the demos, they read the hype. What's your advice for them, and how should someone start their agentic AI journey, even in 2026? Because they're still not living far behind. We just get started.
So my advice is to pretty much simple and to start experimenting now and start very small. Don't need to try to automate your most critical business process on day one. I would rather build simple agents for low stakes tasks, automate a weekly report, maybe create a research assistant, build a code reviewer, maybe, to fetch some informations and put it to my email every day. So you will learn a lot of things just by doing. And don't just go by reading and reading. You should also be implementing as well at the same time. Even though it's a very small task,
Yep.
it is still going to be help.
Mhm.
Pick one framework, It's a Crew AI, Autogen, LangGraph. Even if you don't know how to do coding, because there are a couple of frameworks, Crew AI you can also do. You can also do coding, and you can also do without coding. If you're not from a techie background, you can still do a lot of stuff without coding. You don't even need. Go deep with it, and don't try to learn all three at once. So pick one tool and then build several projects with your chosen framework until you uh, learn that that about your patterns and understand its strengths and limitations. Then so one tool, then one framework, and then couple of agents, couple of functionalities. So focus on reliability, observability before scaling. And we also need to make sure that we can see that what our agents are doing. So build a good error handling as well. Test edge cases, monitor costs. That's also one of the most important things that we already talked about. Um, a reliable agent that handles 80% of cases is more valuable than a brittle agent that claims to handle 100% but breaks in production. So that's my point.
Those are some excellent practical advice, Mac. And I would like to add one more advice to our listeners. Always stay curious and stay plugged into the community. This field evolves so rapidly. What's cutting edge today might be outdated in 6 months. So try to follow the research from OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, and other renowned AI leaders. Engage with the builder communities. Follow them on X or Discord. Try to make sure that reading case studies would be your daily job. So every day, try to make sure that you are keeping up with the research going on in the AI world. Because from my experience, some of my best insights from 2025 came from conversation with other developers or AI leaders, from seeing how different teams approached similar problems, from learning what failed and why. Because the community is one of the most valuable resources for staying current in this AI world.
And Sam, a community is absolutely critical. The reason is that the part of what we are we are trying to engage with. So where we are right now, because of the community that we first started and we first made. And apart from the community, that also newsletter is essential. That one of the reasons that the community is so important, because community can give you different vibrations, different calibrations from different people. I mean, from the developer's point of view, from an architectural point of view, you will get a lot of viewpoint from different people. And what we are trying to build with is Assemble AI, a space where builders can learn from each other's experiences, share their knowledge, be honest about what didn't. Right. So we have covered a lot of ground today. The 5 compounding factors that enabled agentic AI, breakthroughs, failures of 2025, framework evolution, multi-agent systems, safety considerations, and practical advice for getting started. Any final thoughts before we close out?
I think you wrapped up this very well, because I believe 2025 was the year AI became truly agentic, moving from reactive to proactive, from tool to teammate, from answering questions to taking action. We literally witnessed and participated in a fundamental shift in how AI systems operate. The agents we're building today are still early, still imperfect, but they present a new paradigm. And I'm excited to see where 2026 takes us in our agentic AI journey. And also, we probably going to explore more agentic use cases, or more frameworks might come out to later this year. So I would definitely recommend people to keep building, keep researching, and keep innovating with this agentic AI, which is still taking a baby step.
Absolutely beautiful, Sam. And listeners, we want to also hear from you. How are you using agentic AI? What excites you? What concerns you? Reach out to us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or through our websites at insideassembleai.com. Subscribe to our newsletter. Give us comments, feedback. what you want to listen in future.
And if you really enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review Inside Assemble AI, as we are right now available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Amazon Music. And we do also have a YouTube channel. So please feel free to share that with your contacts if you really find this conversation valuable. And thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.